This meeting is being recorded.
Healthy boundaries for our children. Who is in charge?
Correct.
We are living in a time when most of us feel rushed, overshadowed, stressed, and unable to breathe. Most of us have taken multitasking to an all-time high. But what are we missing in the process? If we feel stressed, what do our children experience? How are they coping with the lack of time? How does this type of modern lifestyle affect their ability to learn and communicate? And what is the impact on their behavior and health?
Continue.
One practical way to help our children develop a healthy sense of will is by setting age-appropriate boundaries. This section addresses how to reduce stress through strengthening daily rhythms and making healthier lifestyle choices.
One thing extremely important is daily rhythms. It's so difficult. It has been very difficult for me. And healthy, predictable daily rhythms is something that will definitely bring a lot of peace and also a lot of health. So I'm just reiterating that. All right, continue.
The inner nature of the will. The inner nature of the will is very deep in a visceral sense. The will compromises forces that give us the power to act. When we connect these forces with our ego consciousness, we have the power to change the very substance of our own being. When a child's will forces, which come from a common wellspring and are not yet individualized, are set in motion for the good, the child experiences health through his or her whole being. The rightness of an action is clear to a child not only from its outcome, but also by how it feels inwardly. How do we help our children develop a healthy sense of will?
Yeah, the first line, the inner nature of the will, is very deep in a visceral sense. The will is the ability to do, and visceral sense is when we do it out of strong feelings and not too much thought is given to it. So how are these connected? The inner nature of the will is coming out of the strong feeling and not from conscious thinking. So what we call as intuition, somewhere we know that we need to do this, and this is what is right, though the world may reject it. Is what we need to build, that healthy sense of intuition, where a child feels so grounded, so connected, so driven to do something, not because he has to score the marks, but because it's the right thing to study when he is in school. That kind of a will is something that we need to work very consciously. And I think the next paragraph will help us understand it a little bit more. All right.
Children today need strong will forces to survive the challenging times that we live in and to develop the courage to stand up to the obstacles and overcome them. If we do not help them develop a healthy sense of will, always in the service of growth, development, truth, beauty, and goodness, the child will become isolated in a negative experience of willfulness. When the will forces are used only for self-gratification and gain, we become disconnected from the universal. This is devastating for children. They become unhappy, moody, and oppositional. They lose the joy of childhood, becoming self-critical and critical of others. Temper tantrums and other behavioral issues can arise when the will forces, which play out through the feelings, are not addressed by the parents and teachers in the appropriate manner. During childhood, the foundation stones and habits are imprinted into each of us, which will grow and develop into free moral qualities in adulthood. What a child misses in this regard in childhood will surface with devastating repercussions in pre or full adolescence.
Yeah, that is what we are seeing with children these days. The very first line, the children need strong will forces to survive the challenging times that we live in, and to develop the courage to stand up to the obstacles and overcome them. We really have no clue, absolutely no clue as to what children are facing in the outer world. There is too much pressure on them. When I think back of my own school, college days, not once did I hear my parents or anybody, for that matter, asking, what are you doing? How much have you scored? Go to tuition so you can score better. Things like that. It was just me as a female, but also for my brothers. So somewhere we were allowed to explore, experiment, take charge, take risk, even though we also had our share of challenges, but nearly not as much as children these days have. And if I'm basing how my children are on how I was as a child, that's the only experience I have, by the way, I am not understanding children at all. I'm not moving with the age, with the times. I'm stuck in my shell. And that is where there is a gap being created between adult and children, generational gap. And these days, the generation gap is 3 years. So one child, if my son and my daughter, there's a generation gap. Unfortunately, they're 3 years apart. And that's how it is, because it's exponential growth in the technology and how we are influenced. I mean, AI was not in the picture, at least for majority of the population, until a year ago or so. Now there are so many apps that have come up, and all of us many of us access it. And if I'm not, then I'm lagging behind. And I'm subjected to that pressure. So we need to develop resilient children. Even if I don't know, I should be able to say, hey, I don't know, I'm willing to learn. And if I know, I should be able to say that I don't need it. I don't need to be inundated with all of these. And know what to use and what not to use. Very recently, like yesterday, there was news item, especially for Indian students in the US. All their social media posts or pictures that they post will be tracked to grant them visa or whatever. So everything we do online is tracked by someone sitting up there. Why do you think Google, WhatsApp give us all these free features? And it's not one person sitting there and looking, it's the AI tools that is filtering the kind of messages we are posting, the kind of words we are using. And of course, it's good for filtering out the criminals and criminal activities and whatnot. But then children are inadvertently, unknowingly, are becoming victims in this process. Now, if they do something like that, do they have courage to even come to the parents, come to the teachers and say, I have done a mistake, I'm stuck in this, can you please help me out? You know, that moral qualities that we want to see in the adulthood. Is that something we are sowing now? Are we building those habits? Are we setting those foundation stones now? It's a huge, huge discussion and debate, but we must begin, at least for ourselves, to first, so we can do some justice to the children. All right.
Yeah. How can we give our children a healthy childhood? The foundations for a strong creative will, one which is based on goodness and truth, begin with adults providing healthy examples and role models who are worthy of imitation. We must learn to walk the talk and not just know these principles in our heads. We have the power to change the flow and habits of our family and classroom by changing ourselves first, then helping our children. We must learn to set routines and boundaries for ourselves and our children. Everything does matter in childhood. How many of us spend years overcoming what happened or did not happen to us in childhood? Life is difficult enough. Let us work to cultivate the garden of the will to serve the growing individual and the world in a positive way, enabling the future adult to be prepared to make a successful choices out of freedom, choices based on a deep sense of what is right and wrong.
Yeah, the second sentence, we must learn to walk the talk. What I speak, I do it. Yes, it is better to not talk. You know, just talking because I know it, or many a times unconscious talking. I talk out of habit. I talk to put somebody down. I talk to hold myself up. I talk just because I have nothing else to do. We need to become mindful of what we talk. And that itself could be a lifelong challenge for many of us to filter, distill the thoughts and speak what is required to the extent it is required. I may know a lot, but the receiver may not be in the position to receive. Then what's the point in talking? And the tone, the pitch with which I talk, language is extremely important. The sounds are extremely important. Why? Because we want to enable the last sentence, enabling the future adult to be prepared to make successful choices out of freedom. Choice based on a deep sense of what is right and wrong. Again, if we go back and question ourselves, am I choosing out of freedom anything that I want to do? Am I making the choices out of this deep sense of what is right and what is wrong? You know, working with children always points back to us, because we are the whole and soul for the child, at least until the child is 14 years old, and for the good or for the bad. So it's important the way we are. So if not anything, do not talk what you cannot walk. All right.
What are your memories of childhood? Traditions, festivals, family vacations, Sunday dinner together, going to the opening game of the Red Sox, and the like. Daily and yearly rituals, bedtime, meals, seasons, household chores, taking care of animals, and so forth. Quality of communication in the family, yelling, avoidance of confrontation, argument, and the negative criticism, laughter, humor, and unconditional validation, open door attitude on all subjects, family respect, and weekly povo to talk about the weeks past and to come, making decisions together, listening to each other, discipline, how it was handled, set boundaries, corporal punishment, conversations, who set the family rules, consistent or sporadic follow through, no consistent consequences, scapegoating, passing the buck or blame, style of parenting, creative, authoritative, reliable, unreliable, secure, insecure, passive, authoritarian, and so forth.
These are all good pointers for us to journal it out. And these are also the movers and shakers that will shake us up to begin healing. If you can go back to your earliest memories of childhood, take any one of them and it will lead to everything else when you go deep into it. Traditions or daily, yearly rituals, the quality of communication in the family, which is like a big thing. Not very many families have quality communication, discipline, and style of parenting. Discipline is another one. I have heard many stories where typically the father was a hardcore disciplinarian. Nothing could make sounds, nothing could move around. You could not come in home late, you could not move about freely. My uncle was one of them, and the environment in the house was so dead. We were so scared to even laugh out loudly. We had to like whisper all the time. And I can see the effect of it. He had 3 kids. One of them turned out to be a real rebel. The first 2 turned out are undergoing right now severe depression. So the effects are devastating, like he mentioned earlier. And are we the victim of such memories? Were my parents creative, authoritative, reliable? Did I feel secure in their presence? Were they passive or authoritarian? So many different labels. I mean, when you start looking at it and see the effect of parenting style on your being the way you are right now, you will probably get so many more inputs. And you will begin to understand why you are behaving, why you are the way you are. With that, you begin healing your own trauma. And then there is automatically a beautiful environment with healthy boundaries created without you having to do anything. So again, it is me who has to. Fortunately, it's only me that I should work on. I don't have to blame anybody, label anybody. And we will go through a lot of crying, a lot of pain. Many of us are afraid to even go through that. I'm not brutally honest with myself. And that also takes courage. I don't have to tell anything to the world. It's just to me that I was the person who started doing something. And rather than blaming, I take the responsibility. I mean, just for myself, if I can be brutally honest, big things shift for us. And children definitely see that shift. All right.
Yeah, I want to share my one incident when my father spoke to me when I was in college. So, like, our friends group was very big, and many of them were coming to the house and for some purpose and all. He never told me to don't talk to boy in that time actually. Don't talk to that boy or something. Never he told me. And once he told me, I have 100% trust on you. You will not do any wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
It made me so means secure and this one, no. So that much trust he was having on me actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that freedom also he has given to me. I can go anywhere, talk to anyone. He never
Mm-hmm.
asked me anything.
Yeah. And that trust made you super responsible. You cannot
Yes,
break that trust.
yes,
I mean, he was happy, you are happy because he doesn't have to police you, keep wondering
yeah,
which boy my daughter is going with,
correct.
you know. And you also have that, my father trusts me so much that I better not betray his trust.
Yes,
And it goes a long way.
yes,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Thank you. How were you parented? Who were your role models? Who was the biggest influence in your life? Who raised you? What do you remember about how they parented? What do you do as a parent or a teacher that comes from your own childhood experience? What positive and negative things do you do which are based on the past?
Yeah, great pointers for us to reflect upon. If any of your journaling, it'll give you a huge insight. What we do see in the present time, parents are super duper successful, but children are lost. Parents were away out working on their own careers, building a name, fame, power, money, whatever. And children were raised by maybe a trusted caregiver, but somewhere, no matter who it is, parents are going to outlast anyone else. The caregiver may go away with who the child developed bonding, maybe. But when child is independent, maybe first grade, second grade, fifth grade, the caretaker is sent home. Now, who do the child connect with? Something that we need to ponder. Maybe for many of us, we had at least mother staying at home with us. That doesn't mean we had good relationship with them, because they're also undergoing their own trauma from their own childhood, which they did not heal, and it was passed on to us. And Steiner does say, that these traumas last 3 generations. So my mother passed something on to me, and I passed something on to my daughter. And it continues. So somewhere we have to break that cycle and heal and let it be us. All right.
Yes. Lower foundation, will, and inner senses. These are important foundation senses which tell us about ourselves in our own bodies. When they have developed in a healthy manner and are well integrated, we feel secure, safe, and centered. When they are not healthy, we can feel anxious, insecure, unsure, unsafe, fearful, on high alert, and defensive. Movement. A proprioceptive experience. This is the sense of our own movement, the ability to coordinate large and fine movements in the proposal way. Balance. Vestibular. This is a sense of balance, of safety. Can we be secure in our bodies in relationship to gravity and levity? And gives us the foundation for the ability to be centered in our own selves. Touch. The tactile sense give us the experience that we end at our skin, that there are boundaries. When children do not have a healthy sense of touch, they do not know where they end and the world begins. Consequently, these children become hyper vigilant and defensive, feeling that the world is attacking them through their senses, creating anxiety and even aggressive behavior patterns. Life or well-being. Also, visceral, this deep sense is directly affected by all of the other 11 senses. When our sense of well-being is compromised, our whole body and being can become overwhelmed and may even shut down. Lack of food, sleep, deprivation, motion sickness, physical or verbal threat, test anxiety, and many other stressful experiences can negatively impact this primal sense of well-being.
Yeah, lower foundation, will, inner senses. I mean, these are all the same terms: lower senses, foundation senses, will senses, or inner senses. These are the 4 of the 12 senses that Steiner talks about. And these are the 4 senses that need to be developed in early childhood. And of course, there is hearing, listening, taste, touch, smell, etc. But they're not developed yet in the first stage. So it's the movement that is developing. It's the balance. Sense of touch is, Steiner takes this whole body as one big sense organ. So the child feels it in every cell of the body through touch. That's why they touch everything and they put in their mouth everything. And a sense of well-being, that is feeling safe and secure, having that environment where I am taken care of. Things may not happen perfectly well every time, but even when things don't happen right, the child has a feeling that I am safe, or the safety will be restored. I have a parent I can rely upon. There is my parent to take care, to balance the situation out. So feeling of that, like fairy tales where things happen, a villain comes, but everything is happy ever after. So we need to reset to that state every day, every night, every time a child goes through a situation of what is called illness, where the child doesn't feel very healthy, to feeling of life, feeling of well-being, being healthy. So we'll stop here for today.